I'm Lisa Evers. I'm the host of Hot 97 Street Soldiers. You can hear us live every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. and the podcast on lisaevers.com. And I'm speaking for the first time on Hot 97 with a member of the City Council. She is a mover and shaker and shaking things up in a good way. Her name is Vanessa Gibson. She is from the Bronx. Her district includes Yankee Stadium, Claremont, Highbridge, a lot of the neighborhoods where many of our Hot 97 listeners come from. And she is making some moves. A lot of people have their eye on her, and we're very, very happy right now to have her doing your first interview right here on Hot 97.
I'm excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Now, one of the projects that you're working on that is the first of its kind in the country is this whole idea of giving people who come home from prison or come home from doing a bid an alternative to just going back on the streets that got them in trouble in the first place. Tell us about that.
So I think, bottom line, working with so many stakeholders, we really have to have a cultural shift. We have to redefine the work we're doing and look at alternatives and really creative and innovative solutions to address a lot of the problems we know exist. So I'm very proud. I represent the old Fulton Jail on Fulton Avenue next to Crotona Park in my district, and we are working with the state. We got ownership of it, Osborne Association, and we are working to make it the Fulton Reentry and Economic Development Center. We recognize many young men and women coming home from prison, coming home with felonies, records, not really being able to reintegrate back into society successful, trying to prevent recidivism, making sure that they are provided with housing, healthcare, social services, most importantly jobs, to make sure that they can reintegrate back into society in a productive way. So this center, it's 7 floors that we're going to house with a multitude of social services, mental health, and other professionals to really make sure that we provide the total needs of that individual.
So this would be basically be like a clearinghouse almost of services for somebody coming home if, let's say, they wanted to finish their GED so that they can get a better education, that type of thing.
Absolutely. And the reason why it's so significant is because it is the first in the nation where you've had a former prison turning it into a plan with a purpose. And I'm very grateful because many young men and women coming home that feel that vacuum, that loss of family, loss of income, loss of connection with their relatives and their children, they really need a center. They need a hub. They need to have a multitude of services in one location, not going to one place for housing, going to another place for social services. So this is going to pretty much be a one-stop shop.
And also coming home after being in a very structured environment, this will be helpful to them as well.
Absolutely. And we recognize that also we have to provide support for that family as well. Individuals need their family support in place when they're coming home from prison. So we're going to provide a lot of support for families, reintegration, building relationships with their children. There may be some potential foster care issues. So we're really going to look at this, to me, as a model of what we do with old jails in our communities.
Now, you are basically a street soldier on the city council because you don't just sit in the office or sit in the council, the fancy chambers. You're actually out there on the streets of your community. Why do you feel that's so important to you as a lawmaker?
Because people need to, number one, understand who their elected officials are, the work we're doing as public servants representing them in various governments. And also, they need to understand that we're real people. We understand their issues. We know the situations they come from, the circumstances, the challenges, the hurdles, the roadblocks. And we are there to help them. But we need to know who out there needs our help. So I am a very active member of the council. I was a former assembly member, equally as active, have a larger district now. I do neighborhood community councils, my meetings every month. I work with stakeholders, clergy, businesses, unions, teachers, educators, advocates, tenant leaders. I work with everyone because everyone has a voice. There are so many people out there that feel like they don't have a voice and no one is out there reaching out on their behalf.
And what about with the young people? Because the Bronx, probably of any borough in the city, has the youngest population. What kind of issues do you see affecting our youth and also our young adults who are just starting out in life?
Bullying, the temptation and coercion to join gangs, the fact that we have a lot of challenges in our schools. Children of color are still behind children with disabilities and IEPs, children who are foreign-born, immigrant students, undocumented students, challenges. I look at a job as the best social program that we could ever create. youth opportunities for civic and positive engagement. What we did at the City Council, we allowed 16-year-olds to join community boards now, because that's important to make sure young people are involved. We have summer youth all year round. We have a lot of opportunities, but I have a youth council. I work with young people, and I have them doing a lot of work in my community because they have a very powerful voice, and sometimes we have to recognize that and give them the opportunity.
Now, here on Hot 97, we are the radio station that started hip-hop votes.
Yes.
Why do you think it's so important for young people to vote and have a voice that way?
Number
What
one,
would you say to somebody that goes, I'm not going to vote, it doesn't matter?
our ancestors died for the right to vote. It is something that is a right and not a privilege. Exercising your right to vote means that you have a voice in who your leaders are. You have a voice in the services and resources that are in your community. You have a voice in the future of your community, because elected officials invest in neighborhoods. We make differences. We change situations. We stabilize and strengthen communities. Young people need to be involved. I look at voter registration as voter education, because not only do I want you to vote, but I want you to understand why it's important to vote. We can give you a form to fill out and tell you to vote, but it's much more powerful when you actually exercise your right to vote.
And people who do vote have much more of a say in what actually happens in their community, whether that ball field or that basketball court gets maintained, whether there's a new school, that type of thing.
Every 10 years we do the U.S. Census data, which is data collected by the federal government to determine the resources that are needed in neighborhoods, and it goes by voter data. It goes by those who vote. So if you are a voter, a registered voter, and you don't vote, then that means you're not a part of that data, and we can't really get a sense of who the residents are and what their needs are. Access to U.S. Census information means access to hospitals, roadways, highways, public institutions. That means investing in our infrastructure in our communities.
Looking to the future, what would you like to see happen in the communities that you serve right now? What would you consider, wow, that we did a good job, that's a success?
I want to see a movement among our young people that focuses on empowerment. I want young people to recognize they are the soldiers and those trailblazers. I look at myself as just one person of many, and I stand here as an elected official on many broad shoulders, but I want young people to look at themselves and see someone like me, someone, you know, born and raised in New York City, educated in public schools, struggling single mother, and made it to college, made it to become an elected official. I want them to see opportunities. I want them to see open doors and not closed doors. I want them to recognize their circumstance should never define their future. Their zip code, their ethnicity should not define their future. They are children of God. They have potential. They have talent, and we want them to recognize they have something to give to the world.
All right, City Council Member Vanessa Gibson from the Bronx, thank you so much for your first Hot97.com digital interview. I'm Lisa Evers, your host. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Looking forward to coming back.
We'll have you back. We'll have you on Street Soldiers, and thank you so much. And remember, push for peace.